Hey, welcome back, Business 101. We have finished up the week of midterm exam number 2, and I hope that you all are pleased with your results. I will, within the next couple days, review all the statistics and the scores and give you a general idea how everybody did, what the class average was, and those kinds of things. But this week we are releasing module number 11. And so module 11 on information technology, this video is a brief introduction to that module, right? I realize when we talk about information technology that oftentimes in a larger class, there's sort of two types of people. There's the type of person, and maybe this is you, who has for a long time now been very, very comfortable with technology. Maybe you're the person in your household who is the go-to whenever something goes wrong with the Wi-Fi or a computer or a smartphone, right? That you know how to fix those things. You spent a long time learning that knowledge and getting familiar, and you're not scared of it. You just got to fix it, right? And then maybe there's another type of person in this class who is not so comfortable with technology, right? Maybe you're the person who, when something goes wrong with your smartphone or your computer, you're turning to someone else in your family to help you fix it. You're not quite sure what to do if Wi-Fi doesn't hook up the first time, and those kinds of things. You're getting to know that stuff a little better, but admittedly, you're not really comfortable with that. And if you are in that second category, I want to tell you, this module is designed for you. I want to provide an introduction to business use of information technology in such a way that it's comfortable for you, it's safe for you, you don't feel like anyone's being impatient with you. Everybody's got to get up to a basic sort of foundation, and that's what this module is for. And quite frankly, if you are in the first group of people, right, you're one of those people who, for years and years has been really comfortable with the tech, I want to ask you to simply be patient with this module, because some of this may be review for you, or maybe a lot of it's review for you. But just realize everybody isn't in the same place, and everybody sort of needs to advance the ball and progress. And so that's why this module exists. So I want to welcome all of you to this module, module 11 on information technology. Now, this, of course, is a pretty darn big topic. How has technology affected business? You don't have to travel far, right, to understand it's changed everything for us. But I think that it probably makes sense to give you at least a handful of examples for you to consider as we start this module out, right? So, for instance, realize that, for example, the largest taxi companies in the world now, they don't own any cars. They don't own any vehicles, right? Of course, I'm talking about Uber and Lyft. Or let's think of another example. The largest providers of movies and entertainment, movie entertainment, they don't own any cinemas, right? I'm talking, of course, about Amazon Prime, Netflix, Apple TV, right? Or even, the largest provider of vacation accommodations doesn't own any hotels, right? Talking, of course, about Airbnb, right? These are all business propositions, business models that couldn't have existed without the technology. And that's exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about, right? Is that the world has changed and business has changed because of what technology has enabled us to do in the world today, right? Now, that being said, this module will begin with some baseline foundational definitions of hardware and software and a network, right? And so what is a network of computers? A network is simply two or more computers that are communicating with each other, able to communicate with each other one way or another, right? And so hopefully that demystifies a few concepts for many of us, right? The whole idea, for example, of us, I store all my photos in the cloud, or I store all of my documents or music in the cloud, right? All that really means is you're storing it on somebody else's computer someplace else on the network, right? And maybe you know what computer that is and who owns it, or maybe you don't, right? But just simply the fact that we use some of these big highfalutin concepts like the cloud. All we're talking about is a network computer someplace else in the world, right? So you'll get some baseline definitions of those kinds of things for you to sort of have some mental building blocks, how all this stuff works together. What is the difference between an internet, an intranet, and an extranet? You'll see some of the definitions of those things. And really all those have to do is the whole concept of permissions. Who's allowed to find and get information in these different types of networks. It's really the foundational difference between these concepts I've just mentioned. And really where we've gotten to as a society and in business is that the network is the computer. When I think about the computer I use to get answers or get information, right? Hey, how old is Brad Pitt? How many boyfriends has Taylor Swift had? How many kids has Madonna adopted? What time is that next movie showing? How much profit did the Apple Corporation make last year? I mean, those are, where do I go to get that information? Well, you know and I know, right? We go and we ask Siri or Alexa, all right, or Google it, or look it up on DuckDuckGo. And all we're doing is leveraging the computer, which is what? The whole network now is the computer we use to get these answers and this information. And so you'll get that concept hammered home time and again in this module, as well as the fact that, well, we lean on the computer, that being the network, right, for all sorts of support and assistance, and even in assistance in making business decisions, making our decisions, right? So a couple of modules ago, we talked about the whole concept of leadership and decision making. And what you need to realize is that nowadays we leverage the computer, the network, to help us make our decisions in business more so and more so. And it helps us to be more efficient and actually, well, to make decisions in ways that we weren't previously able to make decisions because of the speed and the efficiency that the network helps us and supports us in plowing through all of this information that we're inundated with these days, right? We'll give you some examples in the module as well of how specifically the technology, the network, because the network increases speed and shortens distance and makes communication possible and increases collaboration and increases flexibility, how we can now accelerate the speed at which we do business and make business decisions in ways that just quite frankly we weren't able to do previously, right? So all of that is in this module as well. Now, of course, when we talk about the network and we talk about information, we need to talk about information technology security. Because right now, anytime a company is breached, right, their network is breached by hackers, well, the average cost of a data breach these days is about $4 million. As soon as you read in the newspaper or see in the news, hey, a company's IT security has been breached, we're talking about, on average, about a $4 million cost. Or to put it in real terms, that's what? That's about 2 or 3 homes in Mill Valley, right? That's the cost of a data breach these days. And that's why, for instance, in the world today, business spends about $134 billion in IT security. All right, I'm going to repeat that number, $134 billion spent on IT security. What does that mean? It means IT security, if that's sort of where maybe your interests gravitate, you can pretty much be guaranteed lifetime employment. And there aren't too many industries or roles where I can say that if you go into this kind of work, you can pretty much guarantee for as long as you want to work, you'll have employment, right? That is true in IT security just because of the dollar amounts and the expenditures that are going out in the world today for these kinds of things. On one side note, I should tell you, the information we'll give you in the module about the big 5 primary ways, the 5 things you need to have nailed down in IT security. That's not from the textbook. That's from my actual anecdotal experience working with industrial grade IT security specialists, professionals who do that for a living. As you may remember from our introductions, I was in my previous life in charge of technology for a couple of large corporations And part of my role there at those places was to work with IT security professionals. So that's where some of that information comes from. All right. Now, the last thing I guess I'll tell you in this introduction is what's the most important thing for business people to keep in mind when we think about IT, when we think about technology. And this, I'll just put it this way. When I got hired on here at College of Marin, I went through several interviews. One of the interviews that I went through was a panel interview with a panel of about 8 people all at once. And one of the questions that the assistant vice president of the college asked me was, how do you try to teach technology to your students? What's one of the things you try to bring to business students in terms of teaching them about technology? And I told him one of the things that I try to remind every business student about technology is don't get distracted by shiny objects. Don't get distracted by shiny objects. And what do I mean by that? I mean that for many people, technology can be a shiny, glittering object that can be distracting, like how we distract our pets, right? If you have a cat and a laser pointer, that's entertainment for a week, right? Because they're distracted by shiny objects. And my point is, if you are a business professional, you cannot afford to get distracted by shiny objects. Don't get distracted by the technology. Keep your attention focused on the business goals you're trying to accomplish by using the technology, right? So for instance, we are told that sometime in the near future, we will have self-driving automobiles. And it's easy to get distracted by that. Wow, that'll be crazy. That'll be really cool. But remember, as a business professional, don't be distracted by the fact that the car will drive itself and how wonderful the technology is. Really, what you should focus on is what's the end goal of having self-driving cars. And of course, the end goal is what? The complete eradication of gridlock traffic during commute hours. It should never take 2 hours to get from San Francisco to Walnut Creek. It's only 30 miles. It should take you less than a half an hour to get from San Francisco to Walnut Creek. The only reason it doesn't during commute hours is because of the physics of fluid dynamics and impatient drivers stomping on the brake pedal. Okay, think about it. Some guy's tailgating you. He realizes at the last minute he's too close. He jams on the brakes. It causes everyone behind them one at a time to jam on their brakes. And then slowly they accelerate again, right? And it's that herky-jerky stop and go transferred all the way down the line like an accordion that causes gridlock traffic. When we have every car connected to the network, no one will be jamming on the brakes. Everyone will be traveling at the same speed, and that's when traffic becomes, well, what it always should be on a freeway. Hey, there's no stoplights on a freeway. There's no reason anyone should ever stop, except for the human being. You remove the human being, the impatient driver, out of the equation, and everyone will get to their destination at 55 miles per hour without having to stop. That's the end goal. That's just an example, by the way. An end goal of not being distracted by the shiny object, instead focusing on the business objectives, which will be accelerated by the technology. All right? You'll get that and, well, quite a few other things in this module, but I want to welcome you to Module 11. It is open for you now. Hopefully you get a lot out of it, and we will see you in the next module.